Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan Claycomb. I am a retention project manager at Tri-Cities Western Campus, and thank you so much for joining us on our last session of Success Week. This session will focus on getting into a health career. So we have Mike Cassida here, who is going to tell you a little bit about his program specifically, but he's also able to answer any questions that you might have, or if he can't answer them, we'll connect you with the appropriate program manager who can. So you are muted upon entry. However, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to type your questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we can unmute you if you feel comfortable chatting. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Mike, and I'm here if you need anything, okay?
Again.
Yep, it's all you.
Um,
Did we lose your PowerPoint?
my PowerPoint's not showing.
Ah,
I have
that
to
is.
reshare it again.
I
I
think
see
so.
you.
I think
Okay.
you do have to reshare one more time. Sorry about that. Perfect. All righty.
Hey, hello there. My name is Mike Cassida. I am the Electrode Neuro Diagnostic Technology and Polysomnography Program Director here at the college. Um, I've been here for 16 years, and I actually went through the Poly program about 20 years ago myself. Got my first job at Rainbow Babies and Children's, doing sleep studies on the little ones. Then I migrated over to the adult lab, became lead tech, became supervisor, and then back in 2004, I got a call from Tri-C saying, "Hey, do you want to teach?" Because our instructor for the Poly program is moving to Virginia. So that's kind of how I started, and then now I run the two programs. And you probably don't know what they are. Polysomnography means mini sleep studies. So for that, we teach students how to actually conduct sleep studies, overnight studies in a sleep lab. And electrode neurodiagnostics kind of covers a whole umbrella of different modalities. The main one probably being EEG, which you've probably heard of, putting electrodes on patients' scalps and measuring their brain waves, checking for seizures, things like that. You would also learn how to do nerve conduction studies, kind of where you're zapping patients with electricity. And that's to kind of check for any peripheral type nerve issues. You probably heard of carpal tunnel, things like that. Voc potentials is another form of testing that tests the central nervous system. So it kind of focuses on those type of disorders and diseases. We also have long-term monitoring for EEG. And normal EEGs take about an hour. You come in, we hook you up, we run the study for a while, get some data, unhook you, and you go on your way. Long term, we bring you into the hospital for usually 5 to 7 days. And these are usually for people that have more severe seizure disorders. And they actually sleep deprive you every other night while you're in the hospital because they want to try to induce seizures so they can, you're all hooked up during the whole week. So the doctors kind of see where it's starting at. That's the main thing with seizures is trying to figure out where they actually originate in the brain and where they spread out to, and then what they can do to. I'm going to quickly go over a PowerPoint that was created by our radiography program director a couple years ago, Elizabeth Galdone. And that's her little scalp in there, part of the radiography program. At the Western campus, we have, as I mentioned, my two programs. We have respiratory therapy. You may have heard of that one. There's also diagnostic medical sonography, which is sonography. That's for scanning to look at like the development of a baby. There's also vascular track. There's actually 3 tracks for that program. Radiography, as I just mentioned, Elizabeth Galdone is the program director, and that's doing x-rays. Unfortunately, I think we've all experienced that at least once or another with a broken arm, leg, foot, whatever it might be. So that's kind of the test that those techs do. We also have a nuclear medicine program here at the Western campus. And that's a pretty cool thing, I think, because they actually inject patients with radioactive dyes that target specific points in the body. So they know, like, if they want to look at what's going on with your liver, there's a particular type of radioactive dye that they would inject you that would light up that particular spot. So pretty cool, I think. Everything I mentioned are 2-year associate degree programs at the college. Right now, we're going to run through the PowerPoint briefly here. If you're thinking about going into a health career, hopefully you're going to make an informed decision. And, you know, what does that mean? Well, if we jumped ahead here. Okay, is a health career environment right for me? I can tell you right now that if you're going into this to be rich, it's probably not the right thing for you then. Most people who go into health careers have a sense of kind of like duty, or they want to help people. It's definitely a helping profession. And as I mentioned, I just mentioned 5 programs here at West. A lot of things that most people don't know in the general public is they think, well, if I go in a health career, do I want to be a doctor or a nurse? Like, those are your only 2 choices. And that's certainly not the case. We do have a wonderful nursing program at the college. Right now, Western campus is the only place that's not, I believe, although it's going to change in the near future. You know, everyone knows about nursing. There's a ton of jobs. It's a great field. But again, just wanted you to realize that there are a whole lot of other choices you can make. We also have healthcare programs at our other campuses. I'll kind of touch on those at the end here. So, right reasons, you know, is your heart into it? Is it something you really want to do? One thing that we do to help you make that decision is we kind of mandate shadowing visits, observation visits. So, for instance, if you wanted to go into my one of my programs, you would have to go to a hospital and actually observe 1 or 2 of the modalities that they're doing, and you want to ask questions, things like that. And it's pretty much the same for all the programs. I can't speak for every single one, but I would say what I know of, at least 90% of them have a similar shadowing type thing. And that's really, it's not to help us. It doesn't do anything to help us. It's to help you as a potential student, you know, maybe rule out some health career fields that you just think aren't for you, or really kind of zero in on one that you've been considering, and that might be the clincher. You go and you know, kind of see what they're doing. You ask the text questions. You actually physically see what the job is versus trying to watch it on a video or whatnot. So you're actually there witnessing it, and it's really helpful. So I wish I had that when I was younger. It's rapidly changing, fast-paced. You know, health career is not a stagnant kind of field. It's, in other words, you're constantly going to have to keep learning new things to keep up with you know, the rest of the healthcare world. It's definitely technology and regulation driven. All of our equipment that we use in the E&D and poly programs is very expensive. Our EEG machines are $30,000-$35,000 each. Poly machines the same. Nerve conduction machines are $25,000. Other programs are even more expensive, like the gamma camera and the nuclear medicine program. I couldn't even tell you how much it costs, but I'm thinking it's like in hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there is a lot of technology. Challenging, demanding, yet rewarding work. Again, all the nights I worked in the sleep lab, you know, sometimes at 3, 4 in the morning, it gets challenging because I heard and it might be a slow night, and you know, you're trying to stay awake, or you might have a really rough night where you're, you know, have a lot of highly compromised patients with comorbidities, and you're running in and out of the room, you know, 100 times to fix this or fix that as far as like a sleep study. However, what blew me away when I first got into the sleep field was one of the things we do, and you probably heard it on the radio or TV, is sleep apnea, where you physically stop breathing at night. Your airway becomes blocked. We put CPAP on patients in the sleep lab, and it's called titrating them. So we start you off at a really low pressure, and then we slowly pump it up over the night to get rid of any snoring, arousals, hypotonias, which is a partial lack of breathing, apneas, which is a complete lack of breathing. We fix all that stuff. And the point I'm getting at is a lot of the patients that we would get at um, someone has severe apnea. It doesn't just happen. You don't wake up one day and all of a sudden you have apnea. It starts slowly and it sneaks up on you and it gets worse and worse. And it's a vicious cycle because you're tired, so you can't work out or, really stick to an exercise and diet plan. So you put on more weight. So then that makes your apnea worse. And it just keeps repeating in that direction and going in the wrong way. So we get patients in the lab who are just miserable. They haven't had a good night's sleep in probably years. So they're crabby, cranky, kind of mad at the world. And we do a titration on them. And all of a sudden, I could see in my screen that they're having a bunch of REM rebound, where they haven't had dream sleep in years probably, slow wave sleep rebound. And it just completely different pattern of sleep compared to what they've been doing. And then they get up in the morning and they literally feel like a new person. I've been bear hugged in the morning because people were so happy how they, how different they feel. So there is a lot of, tangible rewards that you can get just helping people, day to day. Lifelong learning, that is for sure, because any health career field, you have to maintain whatever credential you have for that profession. You have to keep getting CEUs, continuing education credits. And that's kind of a good thing because, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's constantly a changing field, so you have to keep up with it. And that's one of the ways they kind of help you keep up with it. What does the work really entail? Well, I don't have time to sit here and talk about there's actually over 30 different health career programs at the college, and this is college-wide, so at other campuses as well. But if you go on the Tri-C website and look under health careers, it'll pull them all up. And, I would advise, if you're not sure, maybe checking some of those or all of those out. Most of our websites have like a little couple-minute video you can click on at the beginning, where it really gives you a brief synopsis of, what the field is. Usually there's like a student talking, an instructor talking, that kind of thing. So there's some websites there you can check out. Now, making an informed decision. That's kind of within the health career field itself. So once you decide, all right, I definitely want to do health careers, but what kind of health careers do I want to do? You can divide it into different categories. One of the main ones is, do I want to do hands-on direct patient care? And to me, that screams nursing, where they could, from head to toe, they could be doing anything to you. Respiratory therapy is pretty hands-on. They're intubating you, where they put the little thingy down your throat and your airway. Like for instance, the COVID, you've heard about a lot of people being put on ventilators. That's respiratory therapy territory right there. They know how to work the ventilators better than nursing or anyone else. Now, with that field, one of the things you also have to be cognizant of is you've probably seen in movies and on TV when someone's maybe terminally ill or they're really, close to death, and the family decides to pull the plug, so to speak. Well, that's people that pull the plug out of respiratory therapy. Some other fields, like the reason I went into polysomnography is because I didn't want the icky blood and guts and body fluids and all that stuff that nursing might have to deal with. So for sleep studies, we're putting several different doohickeys and gadgets and respiratory belts and, pulse oxes and all kinds of stuff on a patient, but it's not invasive. The most invasive we get in sleep is, as I mentioned, putting a CPAP mask on someone's face. Health information technology, that's working more with numbers, that kind of thing, or you can go more into a laboratory setting where you're still dealing with the technology and hands-on, but you're really not having the patient interaction contact. So it's a personal decision. It kind of depends on how you personally, react to things and how you function. Can I commit to the necessary educational requirements? There's short-term certificates here at the college as well. Usually they're anywhere from 6, 9 months, maybe up to a year. Or if you go you want to be a pharmacist or a doctor, you're talking way over 8 years of higher education. Again, all of our current, most of our programs anyways at West are 2-year associate degree programs. It's kind of a journey, okay, to get from beginning to end. One thing, if you decide on a program, you really want to find out, any program you decide on, what the prerequisites are. For instance, for my 2 programs, the 3 prerequisites are English 1010, which is your basic composition class that every college student everywhere has to take. Bio 1100, which is Introduction to Biological Chemistry. And then that's a prerequisite for the final prereq, which is Anatomy and Physiology 1 at the college, and that's Bio 2331. The other caveat is you have to complete those all with a C or higher, so D's or F's do not count. And that's one of the things that get your foot, into the door as far as being accepted into a program. A lot of the healthcare programs are very similar to the prereqs I just mentioned. Some are different. Some, like DMS, I believe, they might have a more specific, instead of Bio 1100, they might have reports more specific to their field, which is fine, but just keep in mind if you change your mind midstream, you may have to retake or take the A&P 1, the standard version that most health career programs accept. What else? You also have to, as I mentioned, do a shadowing visit. Keep in mind that with the current state of the world and the pandemic, that all programs have temporarily put on hiatus the requirement of doing a shadowing visit. Obviously, we don't want you guys, exposing yourself, going into a bunch of hospitals and possibly getting COVID or whatnot. So moving forward, though, once things hopefully, as we all pray, get back to normal, then those shadowing visits will be added back into the requirements. For our program, you also have to have a 2.50 overall GPA. So 3 prereqs with a C or higher, 2.50 overall GPA. Normally, it would be the shadowing visit as well. Once you do all these things, I would, once I can, confirm everything, I would type up a official acceptance letter and I would mail it out to you, letting you know you're starting fall of 2020, or maybe you're on a waiting list, so it'll be fall of 2021. We start every fall semester. Most programs start every fall semester. However, some of the bigger programs like radiography, they have multiple starts. They start fall, I believe they start spring, and I think they also have an evening weekend track. So again, each program is unique and different. So you'd have to, research each individual program and find out for sure what all of the requirements are. And then once you go through the program, they all pretty much have some type of clinical rotation or rotations. We have 4 in our program. You would actually go be assigned to a hospital and you would carry out, duties as a student that you've been practicing all semester in lab, like hooking up EEGs, running EEGs, hooking up sleep studies, kind of thing. And then once you finish the program, we are accredited, both of my programs are. So whichever one you go through of mine, you're eligible to sit for 3 different registry credentialing exams immediately upon graduation. So you definitely want to get whatever field you go into, you want to make sure your credentials, one, it makes you more protected. It increases your earning potential tremendously. And it's just, this is going to be your profession, so you want to do everything right and go all the way. All courses must be taken seriously. What do we mean by that? I guess I would sum it up as saying that, any health career program that you go into, from the day you start till the day you walk out the door with your degree, everything that you learn just builds on everything else, okay? There is no like, well, okay, this semester was rough, but now I could forget about all that stuff and concentrate on the new semester. It doesn't work that way, okay? You have to concentrate from the very get-go. Again, every single thing you learn builds on everything else, and at the end of the program, when you take your comprehensive final, you're responsible for every single thing you learned in the program. And that might sound like tough love, but the reason we do it is when you go to take your credential exam, those are very expensive. They range anywhere from probably $400 to about $800 each. A lot of ours in my program cost $700. Again, that's usually you take it once in your life, and as long as you maintain your credential by getting enough CEUs every year and whatnot, you're good to go. So you don't need to be taking some giant test like every other year. That's not how it works. Each program is unique. Again, I kind of stressed on that already. You want to really see. You can't just assume what I told you from my program applies to, say, the surgical tech program down at Metro, or prereqs and whatnot. So you really want to make sure that you go on that program's webpage. I would recommend speaking to myself, the program director, and I'd love to sit down with you and really go over everything in more detail. I would, be happy to show you the lab. You could sit in on a lab or a lecture. I would let you talk to our faculty, our staff, talk to current students, even graduates if they're on campus, but it's a little harder to come in. But so that's kind of how that works. Delayed entry list. Again, my program, we're pretty much full now for coming fall of 2020. Most programs usually have maybe roughly a 1-year waiting list, just in general. However, the cool thing is there's a lot of things you can get knocked off that are requirements of the program while you're waiting. So it's not like if you use your time wisely, you're going to make your life much easier down the road once you actually start the program. The more things you can get knocked off. An example is Philosophy 2050, which is bioethics. Pretty much all healthcare programs have that. That's one you can knock off. Anatomy and Physiology 2, required for our program to graduate with your associate degree. That's one you can knock off while you're waiting. There's a lot of things you can do. Expectations of the program, time commitment, that kind of thing. All of our programs, we have ours usually at the beginning of August. We have a very mandatory intensive orientation about a month before you start the program. And we really cover that in great detail as far as what to expect, what your life's going to look like. We can even give you a rough idea what your schedule is going to look like, probably like for a year out. But again, it's different. It takes a huge commitment. You get very close to your classmates. Most of these healthcare programs are smaller. So your cohort, you get to know everyone. People form study groups. They tell each other about jobs. Maybe you're doing clinicals at a place, but you're not looking for a job at that moment. But maybe one of your buddies in class is. You could tell he or she about it, and kind of give them a heads up. I will say that again, while all programs are different, for my two programs, I would say 75 to 100% of my students get jobs in the field while they're still in the program, which is pretty cool because, while say you want to be an EEG tech, would you rather work at Mark's for 2 years while you're going to school, or would you rather work at the Cleveland Clinic actually doing EEGs while you're going to school? To me, it's a no-brainer. But okay. Moving along here. Could I meet the necessary personal requirements? Hey, Megan, can you hear me?
I sure can. Yep.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I unmuted my mic. I'm like, I wasn't just talking this whole time.
Nope, you're good. I've been listening the whole time.
Okay, we're almost done here. Physical and emotional requirements of the profession. For example, and if you want to go into nursing, you have to be okay with bodily fluids. It's just the way it is. That's the choice you'd have to make. Again, there's programs that don't have those kind of things. Emotional requirements. I mentioned earlier, respiratory therapists. They may have to, pull the ventilator plug on a patient. When I worked at Rainbow with the little ones, it was one, the most rewarding job I ever had, and two, it was the most devastating job I ever had. The reason being is, the kids that we did sleep studies on, um, they were pretty sick. They might have a rare disease. They were like one of five in the world. Um, so they didn't all make it. I've done sleep studies on kids that, I found out like a week later that, they passed away. Um, so it can be really tough. And in a hospital, obviously, people go there to, get treatment and get their life saved, but there's also people who don't make it. So, you have to be okay with that. Also, more kind of mundane things to look at would be like if you're going to be, I personally am a night person, so I have no problem staying up all night. So going into the sleep field was a good choice for me, but not for everyone. If you're one of those gung ho morning people, you get up at 6 or 7 a.m. every day, no matter what, and you're ready to roll. Um, Going in the sleep field is probably not for you, but there is a good match for everyone. You just have to find it. Um, all the healthcare programs at the college, you have to undergo a criminal background check, fingerprinting, that kind of thing. There's health requirements. There's shot records that you have to provide, titers, vaccines. And, we would cover all of that. And for each program, they're roughly the same, but they are different. So again, I can't stress enough that you have to really be program specific when you're looking at that kind of stuff. Adjustment of personal schedules. You know, we share our lab with respiratory, so for instance, some of our sleep classes are more in the late afternoon or evening, and one of your sleep rotations is an overnight rotation. So you have to be able to make those adjustments in your home life. Your schedule is, if you are a parent, you have children, is your spouse going to be able to stay with your kids overnight while you're working at Metro Health Sleep Lab, doing your clinicals, I should say. Um, so you have to have a strong support system, envision your lifestyle. Again, just realizing that there are clinicals involved, and it's not just you take a few tests and you're a nurse. Okay. As far as the job market goes, demand does fluctuate for each profession, just like anything else out there. It's like, I can tell you that where we live here in Northeast Ohio, it's unbelievably amazing for healthcare opportunities with Cleveland Clinic in our backyard, university hospitals, Metro Health. These are institutions that are known worldwide. Case Western, I've had a lot of sleep students go on and do research for them. And they got free tuition at Case, so other perks as well. I can tell you that for my two fields, E&D and Poly, again, as I mentioned earlier, most of my students are working before they finish, and then they go and graduate, get their credential, and then they get hired full time, usually at where they were doing PRN or part time at. The biggest choice my students or issue they have is trying to decide where to work. Not can they get a job, but which job should they take. And I think the demand for health careers overall, the population in the United States is aging. So for instance, the neurology field, which pertains more to our E&D degree, is just blowing up. There's just so many issues as far as that goes. So hospitals are building bigger and more neurology labs as we speak. This is an important part. What can you do while you're waiting to start the program? I kind of touched on this before and gave some ideas. One of the ones that I definitely want to mention is taking an introductory course, which some programs offer, some don't. I would say most of them do. For us, it's called E&D 1300. It's introduction to E&D, basically. It's offered every fall semester, so it's coming up this fall. Anyone's allowed to take it, so you don't have to be accepted into the program. And it's a good class to be, like, say if you're like, well, I either want to go into E&D or respiratory, so what can I use to help me make that decision? Well, if you take our intro class, it'll really give you a really, really good idea of what the field is and do you want to do it. And the good part is, if you do want to go into the field, then you finish your prereqs and then you start, say, the following year. Well, you don't. That class is already checked off out of the way. You've already taken END 1300. You don't need to retake it. So it's definitely a good way to go. I highly recommend taking other programs' intro courses. You can enroll into Gen 1022 Strategies for Success and other student success workshops. I know the counseling office has a bunch of little workshops, things like that, to help you with maybe test anxiety, those kind of things. You could, while you're waiting to get in, you can learn and practice professional in-person communication skills. That kind of sounds like, well, what does that mean? Like, why do I have to do that? Well, it's just interacting with people. Unless you go into a laboratory setting or something like that, any health career you choose, you're going to have to interact with patients, other health career colleagues, workers, nurses, doctors, that kind of thing. Some people pursue a short-term certificate while they're waiting to get in. Phlebotomy is a good example, which is offered at Metro Campus, I believe. I've had people that, we used to have a 1-year poly certificate program, so I used to have people that were waiting to get into my 2-year END associate program, and while they're waiting, they took the 1-year poly. Some of them loved it so much that they just got their credential in that and got their job and went on their merry way. Others, again, parlayed that into taking, the END program after that. You can volunteer in a hospital. That's a good way to kind of get exposed to that environment and kind of see if you like it. You might want to start looking at adjusting your employment and personal commitments. In other words, if you're on a wait list and say it's this time of year, you've been, on a wait list for 9 months and you're going to start this fall, we want to make sure you kind of start lining up your job, letting them know, like, hey, I'm going to be taking this program. Can you work with me on my hours? My fall schedule, can we work around this? That kind of thing. Instead of waiting until the last second and then realizing, oh my gosh, my job's not going to work with me and I'm starting the program today. Taking courses leading to a bachelor degree, that's always a good thing no matter which direction you go in. There are several resources the college provides to help you succeed, and Megan could probably speak better on these than I can. But, we have an excellent counseling center to help you with your, what you've already taken, what you need to take to finish a certain degree, or what you should take as far as prerequisites to get into a program. But they also have counseling for other things, more like, life situations and emotional things like that. The access office, that's if, you have some kind of an issue going on where, the doctor says, because of whatever reason you need extra time to take your tests or, things like that. And you'd have to go meet with them. That's over in the B building on the first floor there. And each case is specific, so I can't really speak too much in detail about that because, again, it's each one is individual, and you would have to work that out with them. Math and English tutoring, those are popular here at the college. In the very back you walk through the library, the big library area, and then go through the doors into the PLC area where there's like a whole entire sea of computers as far as you can see. There's the testing center back there in the back left, and also like tutoring and stuff like that. Financial aid office is up on the second floor, right as you exit the A building, kind of overlooking the Galleria. Counseling is kind of below that, in the Galleria, actually, on the first floor. Office of Student Life, that's also in the A building. Sports teams, different clubs at the college, things like that. That's their kind of point of contact. And then program-specific resources. Most programs have some kind of a tutor or tutoring type setup embedded in the program. I mentioned study groups. You're going to get close to your cohort, your fellow students. You'll probably make some lifelong friends for sure. And again, you guys are in this together, so you definitely want to help each other out.
You did a great job going over those. I showed up for support, but you covered everything.
Well, that's cool. Thank you. Any questions?
And I have been monitoring the chat to see if any questions have come in, and nothing has come in yet. So if any of our attendees have any last minute questions, I'll give it a couple minutes or a couple seconds. But I also, to piggyback off of the last slide where you went over some of the resources, just so anyone who might be rewatching this recording, we have a couple people watching it live, but if you are watching the recording, there are other sessions from Success Week that are recorded by the counseling office, by the tutoring department, financial aid, library resources, student life. So if there's one area in particular that you'd like to learn a little bit more about, definitely type something in the chat and I can make sure that I send you those recordings, but all of them will be archived on our Student Success at West website. So they can be viewed on demand. Yeah, so I'm still monitoring the chat. Doesn't look like we have anything coming in. But Mike, did you have anything else to add before I close us out?
Yeah, I just would want to say that I think the healthcare field is amazing, and there's so many opportunities, not just in this area. Like one of the things my students could do, all of our credentials are international, so they can go into any state and get a job. They can go to any country and get a job just like that. I just think it's really cool because you have so many different directions or ways you can go. One final strength of my program versus the others, not to toot our own horn, is because we are eclectic and they, because our students do learn so many different modalities, they're extremely marketable. And say, for instance, you go through the E&D program and you gravitate towards nerve conduction and you get your job at the Cleveland Clinic doing nerve conduction studies. You might be doing that for the rest of your career. You might love it, or you might, after a couple of years, go, I think I need to change. I might want to do something else. Well, if that's the case, you don't need to go back and explore more careers and go back to school and spend another 2, 3, 4 years. You could pull on your polysomnography hat. You could put on your EEG hat. You could put on your low potentials hat. Although one thing I failed to mention, we also do intraoperative monitoring in our program. And that's where you're actually in during surgeries, kind of to the side, and you could be monitoring any one of the modalities I mentioned. Usually it's low potential or nerve conduction or EEG. And what it is you're really like a safety net, like an extra pair of eyes for the surgeon. And for example, say if they're doing a complicated spinal surgery and, the surgeon starts getting too close to a certain area, and what we're monitoring, we're getting feedback showing that, like, hey, you need to back off, another millimeter to the right, and this person's going to be paralyzed, for life. So yeah, it's very interesting. That part of the field isn't for everyone. It makes the most money. As far as, I don't think we talked about salaries. Salaries vary quite a bit throughout the different health careers, but just as an average, I could tell you, you're pretty much going to be making between $20 and $40 an hour. I know a lot of sleep techs, for instance, that work at Metro Health Hospital right now, and they're making over $30 an hour. Now, you're not going to go through a program and, as a student, get $30 an hour. Okay, you're going to start off lower, and then the main thing is to graduate and get your credential, and then that's when you get a nice big bump. Then it just keeps going up from there. And then the more credentials you add behind your name, then the more you're going to make, obviously.
Yeah.
So keep learning. Don't stop.
That's awesome. I was really excited about this session because I think that with COVID, one of the positives that has come out of it is finally healthcare professionals are getting the positive feedback and attention that they deserve, because you're essential. There's no way we could have or could make it through something like this without our healthcare professionals. And we're very lucky to live in Northeast Ohio, where there's just a wealth of different areas to work, and people come here from all over to
Correct. That's very true.
utilize our healthcare system. So, well, Mike, I'd like to say thank you so much for your time and your information. I know that many of our students come to Tri-C with the initial plan to start in one of our healthcare programs, and some of them know which program they want to go into, but many of them do not, or they think they want to go into nursing, but like you said in your presentation earlier, you got to be okay with bodily fluids. So if you're not, you might find that out during your clinic or during
that's
your
important, you know.
level. It is, it really is. So I just want to thank you again. And this is actually the last session. We have one more financial aid session this afternoon. We had one every day at 3 p.m. So we still have that, but this is kind of the last session that that I'm manning for the week. So I just want to say thanks to everyone who attended, and we hope that your semester goes well. And if you need anything at all, you know where to find us. So thanks, Mike. I'm going to close us out, and you have a great weekend.
Thank you, Meg. Good luck, everybody. Thank you, Megan. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.